Good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sales and Entrepreneurship series. And I am extremely happy, sales, I always have to say that, right? But for one main reason today is that this is the done data of entrepreneurship, as I like to call it. When we talk hip hop, he's the KRS One of the entrepreneurial journey for entrepreneurs. In Trinidad and Tobago, but this is just a really good friend, my brother, Keron Rose, and I'm really happy to have Keron on this particular episode because he's been a real champion for entrepreneurship, for building a relation as your growth, pushing the envelope as to what companies and individuals and entrepreneurs should be doing, sharing his journey along the way, everything, which to me has always been very, very inspiring. But it's also been a lot of validation because we share a number of ideas as it relates to how we want to build and grow our businesses and how viable we see business as to what entrepreneurs want to do. And I really, Keron, man, I'm just happy that you decided, well, not decided, but happy that you agreed to be on this on this particular episode. And to me, you really don't need no introduction, but I know that I would want to stick a little bit to protocol and say, let the people and them know what you do.
Well, no worries, man. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I feel like we in our conversations have probably had a whole season of podcasts that we could have recorded if we were recording conversations, Just a little bit about what I do. Two things, really. So my main business, or the business that I started building since 2016, is a company called Droid Island. And that company has focused on educating the Caribbean region along the lines of smartphone technology, how to use it within your businesses and personal lives. And also it's an e-commerce platform where people can purchase products as well. Right. I create content. I work with some of the biggest companies in the Caribbean, companies like Digicel, B-Mobile, Huawei, Samsung, Loop Caribbean. So I've done a number of things with those companies, and over the last year, I've transitioned into putting my personal brand a little bit more front and center, and pushing the envelope on digital entrepreneurship. And the reason why it's kind of been a focus for me is that's how I got started. We need a lot of people thinking along the lines of, how could we get started with as minimal as possible and start looking at the opportunities that the digital revolution has brought. Right. And this is the first time in a long time that I feel like the Caribbean has finally had the technology and infrastructure to really actually build in the online space. Right. So I've just been trying to push that because that's what I've been doing in my own business in its own right.
Yeah, so that's excellent, man. And as I say, the reason why I think you and I connect so much is because we've been able to marry the two things that we're passionate about, right? Building our business and how we like to incorporate technology as being part of that business growth. But let's kind of go back. Let's kind of start from the beginning, where as to where things are as it relates to entrepreneurship, right? Because there are a number of people that I talk to, there are a few people that I coach on Saturdays, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by the brilliance of the ideas that people have. And but of course, sometimes they don't always get started right. They don't always get started the right way. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts as it relates to entrepreneurship now in 2020 with everything that's been happening from when you started off a couple of years ago, and now that you're seeing certain things happening in entrepreneurship? Are you seeing that drive or desire for people to become more entrepreneurs starting? And do you how do you see that as being a positive or negative in this space?
So I think given the economies, I think more people are starting to try to start their own thing, whether it's, just a side hustle to start earning some extra money. Right. Because as you know, cost of living around the world is going up. And we need more money. And you can't always, just wake up and go to the boss and say, hey, boss, my Digicel bill or my B-Mobile bill just went up. Right. Can you give some more money to offset it?
Of course.
So you have to now figure your things out for yourself. So you're seeing more people at least trying to start a side business. I always specify that, you know, my thing is digital entrepreneurship, because it's a whole different mindset shift with going down the route of the digital entrepreneurship. And the reason why is because, let's put it like this, right? When people think of business, they think of traditional business. They think, you know, brick and mortar. They think investment. They think finance. They think of a lot of things, and they build up this entire mountain. And by the time, you know, they've sketched out this big mountain and they start to put a price tag to it, all
Right.
of a sudden now you've racked up a bill of $500,000. And the only way for you to go out and get that is, you know, hopefully if you have a rich family member that can give it to you,
Yeah.
right? Or you got to go to the bank. And the millennial generation is the generation that has no assets. So we can't go to the bank and get any kind of loan. It's a non-starter. We have no collateral to lean on. And then what happens is it now disenfranchises the younger generations in terms of starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happens if you can't get a job in your field, you're underpaid in your field, it's the vicious cycle.
Right.
So with digital entrepreneurship, and the reason why there is a mindset shift that has to happen is, if somebody says, you know what, I want to start a fish farm as an example, and they start to price out everything they need for this fish farm. So I'm going to need land. I'm going to need tanks. I'm going to need compressors. I'm going to need oxygen. Like, when you price out everything, you get this entire massive bill that you can't get the finance for, and then you never start, right?
Yep.
Now, if you were thinking along the lines of digital entrepreneurship, you could say, you know what? I might not have $500,000 to go invest in that project, and I'm not going to get it. What about if I, you know, look at who are the players in the space with fish farms, and, you know, I'm interested, I'm passionate about, you know, aquaponics and food sustainability. Why don't I create content around, you know, fish farming? And why don't I see if I could now supply products to the fish farms, but instead of actually stocking the products, why don't I liaise with some suppliers to see if I could drop ship, meaning get people to pay me first and then bring in the products. And all of a sudden now, that's an entire different business model. And you go from probably needing $500,000 to start the one business to you could start that next business for like less than 1,000 TT dollars. And you start there, and all of a sudden now you do a couple things. You're getting acclimated to the industry. You're meeting people. You're networking that's in the industry. You're making connections. You're also going to be able to establish your name, see how things are running in the space, and make some money. And you're going to get a huge return on investment, because the money that you would have spent out from the jump is going to be next to nothing. If you're going the way of digital entrepreneurship. So it's a paradigm shift that I would like to see happening more. But I look at it like this too. We only just got fiber internet in Trinidad in 2016. Right? We're only now, we only now have the right tools in place for e-commerce to properly do it effectively on a much bigger scale. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of buzz in the air about going online because now we have all the right pieces. So I think we're trending in the right direction. Now it just comes down to, we have all the right pieces. Now it's going to come down to education, and we need more people like yourself, like JB, like me, and a few other people to really push the space and open people's minds to going online.
You know, you made a point there that took me back to 2018 when I started my journey on the entrepreneurship journey, because initially, as you said, the industry that I came out from was a brick and mortar industry, right?
Right.
Massive conglomerates, brick and mortar. They had to have a physical presence where customers would walk in, and that is what I was accustomed to for 17 years. However, 2.5 years later, almost 3 years later, I don't have a building, but I've been able to run a successful business, a growing business at that, you know, and run it from a standpoint where I adjust the business model to suit what's happening in the environment. And a lot of that is digital, using technology, using social media, putting certain things out there, understanding content. So you made an excellent point there as it relates to from the, you see when you spoke about that business model aspect, that stood out to me because of the fact that I live that.
Right.
People's business models have changed, but you do still have some people who still think of it the traditional way, right? So they're still looking for a place to spend a lot of money. I actually see I actually see that as being a benefit to an extent, but you have to also be strategic with it, So would you say that there's a lot of opportunity? Because I mean, there are a lot of now millennials who are trying to get their stuff off the ground. You also have people who are in older generations who are trying to get, well, actually, I don't even want to say we're trying. Some of them are doing it.
Some of them are doing, correct.
Running and stuff like that. But I think I can safely say, and you can just let me know, that there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs, but of course, they have to start looking at their business models differently. You'd agree with that?
I agree. And I'll give you an example of thinking differently. So I'm working with a lady. She is early 60s, and her business is e-design. And I have never heard of the industry prior to working with her. But e-design is essentially an interior designer, but just digitally. Right. So now I don't even know how you would go about doing that until she showed me the process. And I was like, this is insane. So they have software. So like the person, like if I'm in another country and you're the e-designer, I could take out pictures of this entire room that I'm in, send it to the e-designer. They put it into their software to render the room, and they can now construct and design a room fitting your needs all digitally. And one of the things that she was telling me about was she's like, where the real money is in like the 3D and 4D rendering. The more real that your renders can be, people pay more money for those designs. And she was looking at outsourcing the 3D rendering to people in the States that could do it. But because she was looking at the States, their prices in US would have forced her to mark up her prices. And because she's starting out, she didn't want to mark up to a point where she probably would not have gotten business. So I told her to do one thing. And again, it's interesting because of the technology and the change of the times. I told her, why are you looking at the States to outsource? We need to look in the other direction. Why don't we jump on Instagram, search the hashtag 3D design, and let's look to see what designers are doing 3D rendering. So we found some people out in India. And if someone in the States was charging $300 US to do a 3D design, the guy in India was charging $16 US to do a 3D render of high quality, because the currency exchanges favors us going that way. So the minute I showed her that and she reached out to a few people, she messaged me and she's like, you just saved my business. And I'm super giddy because before I was stressing about the price points, and now that one simple switch that you showed me has now changed my entire outlook on how I could really scale this business. Right. And that just goes to show you the sign of the times.
Right. So, and now that is an excellent point, because get this, because in so many instances, we look at everything comes to us sometimes at a ridiculously high cost, and the traditional aspect of the US, right? But now it is that you're saying that we don't even have to look there anymore. And this lady found this thing by following what? A hashtag.
Hashtag on Instagram.
You understand? Where I know someone, because she's shopping around looking for shoes and stuff like that, and she is scrolling through Google, calling someone in the US, and the price points are high. It didn't even cross my mind to tell her, you know what? How about you hashtag that type of shoe and see if anybody's making it? So that exactly in itself is a brilliant idea. And what it did, it enhanced her business model because she gets to manage the price point, still deliver on products and services to her customers, and expand. That's brilliant.
Correct.
That's
Correct. And I
brilliant.
mean,
That's brilliant.
what is Instagram if not one of your best portfolios?
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
if you treat it like that, again, you're going to get business from anywhere in the world.
Expand on that a little bit. When you say Instagram being one of your best portfolios, what would that mean?
So meaning like you will have, like, Instagram is visual, right? So if you are in a space that is very visual, and you are hashtagging your content correctly, what Instagram allows you to do is, type in a hashtag and go through it. Think of it like competitive analysis, right?
Right.
If we're doing if we're doing a competitor analysis, and we're Googling businesses, we would have to rely on businesses' websites, right? Yeah. Still great options to do. You got to definitely do that. But then there's other industries where you have people like graphic designers as a perfect example that are putting all of their work on Instagram, hashtagging their stuff. So when you actually pull up a hashtag on Instagram, you're going to see thousands of posts from thousands of different people, all in one grid that you can now click on one, say, oh, I like this person. Let me save their handle. Go to the next thing. Well, no, I don't like this one. Let me skip to the next post.
Right. So I get, so you get to see exactly as to the work that they've been doing. And of course you get to see it because you just made the point. It's a competitive analysis. So you get to see what this one is doing, what Lyndon is doing, what Jared might be doing. And you look at their work and then you make the decision as to whether you want to reach out to them or not. Didn't think about it like that. That's brilliant.
Correct.
That is brilliant. That's
and you see, and it's just a mindset shift of how to use Instagram. Like, I use Instagram in a variety of ways, but that is like one of the most important ways that I use Instagram is that competitive analysis. And if I'm looking to outsource things like graphics, I'm not, I might not Google search who's doing graphics in Trinidad, because I know they're going to give me a rate that I could probably get cheaper and better somewhere else in the world. So let me go to Instagram, pull up graphic design, and go from there.
Right. And because the boundaries are now, there are no more boundaries.
There's no boundaries.
Happens anywhere. Yeah.
Correct.
And it still gets delivered at a high level. So if it is that we would, let's push that a little bit into the corporate space. How do you see that, exactly what you just said there, in terms of entrepreneurs and using the digital space? How do you see that factoring in for folks who are in sales? Because I always see salespeople as entrepreneurs, always, right? However, a lot of salespersons are very apprehensive about using simple things as Instagram, right, to do their work. And also I've found companies apprehensive about using Instagram to do their work. How do you see that as being a benefit? And, maybe you can expand a little bit as to why companies are sometimes so apprehensive on really expanding their space digitally. I don't know if it's a culture thing.
So it's definitely a big thing is culture. I mean, most companies around the world know the importance of using social media to drive traffic, but they're driving traffic to their own platforms. First and foremost, we don't have many businesses that have their own platforms.
Yeah.
So they will rely on a Facebook page and call that George, and we are not using the full versions of social media. A lot of that stuff is limited for our region. So we can't even create commerce on Instagram or Facebook. And what I mean by, creating commerce, meaning that a sale cannot happen on those platforms unless it's a manual sale. Right. And, at the end of the day, I know I'm not about doing that. I prefer, I make a post or I do a piece of content, it drives you to my website, and then you can make your purchase on the website, whether that purchase be a purchase for product or a purchase to book me for my services, right? So businesses should be using social media to drive traffic to their platforms, but how you use social media is going to be very critical, because every social media platform has its pros and has its cons, and I don't think businesses do enough to understand how these social media platforms work. So what we'll see most of the businesses do, within the region is if they did an ad for TV, best believe that's the ad they're posting on social media, all across social media. They're just taking the ad and just posting it on social media. Right. You see that with all of the biggest companies. All they do is post their ads, post their salesy ads.
Yeah, but I mean, it's marketing, and they said as marketing, right? So where's the big thing?
Time and place. Time and place. Time and place. Yeah. The place is not for social media for your.
I mean, I asked that question just to be devil's advocate a little bit, but
no, of course.
I know that you really have to be strategic in what you put where, and not every ad is for everyone based upon your audience.
Correct. Yeah. So you're looking at on Instagram. Instagram is amazing for giving content. You could use the feed to put out some polished content. Even if you want to style your products. If you're in sales, your IG stories platform is so huge because you could be building engagement and showing people so much behind the scenes, ask questions, create a two-way conversation. And that's something that, is very unique to Instagram, where you can create a two-way conversation happening in IG stories, right? Yeah. And IG stories doesn't need to be polished all the time. You could just jump on, ask a question, get feedback, and build that engagement. Yeah. Yeah. Facebook is great. Facebook has, some of the most powerful marketing tools in the industry if you take the time to know how to use it. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn is LinkedIn. That is where all the professionals, all the decision makers are. So if you are somebody in sales, you should be educating your space and targeting the people that need your services on LinkedIn. That's where everybody who can say yes to you is. They're not going to be on Instagram. So why take a TV ad that you were going to put on TV and slap it on Instagram? It's not the place for that. And then turn on and slap it on LinkedIn. The CEOs don't want to see your ad. They don't want to see your TV ad.
It's what's interesting too is that I tend to find, and this can touch a little bit on the marketers. And I mean, sometimes I think they deserve a little bit of lick sometimes, because I don't get the impression that they understand what is required now. And I still see, now no disrespect to anyone, I still see where they are outsourcing certain skill sets that I believe that they should have now. I believe marketers are supposed to have certain skill sets and their team. So you may have a team of 5 or 4 people, but you're still outsourcing to do certain things like run ads, within or to do certain levels of digital marketing, where you really should be now. You should be doing that in-house and outsourcing for the bigger ticket items, the more strategic digital marketing strategies that your team or yourself can handle, which I'll be cool with, but not for the mundane things, just to run ads and build followers and that kind of thing. So,
and I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that the majority of marketers are not business people.
Right.
So they don't connect the dots properly for businesses. So you'll always hear marketers say, you know what, we were trying to do digital marketing for a company and they just don't get it. They're not willing to spend the money. They're not willing to spend the time. But then when you follow them and you hear their message, when you hear their rhetoric, you haven't done a good job of showing how your marketing ties to sales and ties to leads.
Right.
But I find it so much easier when you have, more business-minded entrepreneurs that understand that you need sales, you need money, and they're using content, they're using marketing to mesh everything together so that everything flows. And we talk about HubSpot all the time, and it's amazing. If you even look at how HubSpot has laid out their menus, they've laid out their tabs: marketing, sales, service, reports. They've laid it out how it should be.
Yeah.
So the marketers definitely need licks because they're not speaking the language for the business owners, and they're not doing enough to tie marketing activities into sales, and then you're not creating content to generate sales.
Sales. Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
even with that too, you're also restricting the sales professionals from doing that because they don't want the sales professional to affect the brand of the organization. You know, and sometimes those
correct,
are your biggest champions to really go out there and spread the gospel about what is it that you're doing. You know, but if it is that you're
correct.
holding them back or you're giving them this, you're putting them in a box. Now, I could understand that you may want to have certain policies,
Yeah,
but you can't have policies to the point where the staff is afraid to use social media because they don't want to do anything wrong to get in trouble. You know,
yeah,
so that is,
yeah.
you know, that is bad for business. And by right, what has happened is that staff have said, you know what, I ain't even going to try to do that. You know?
Yeah, because so many businesses are afraid of saying that one thing, and it's funny how social media is. You could be doing all the right things and get 10 likes. Let you do that one mistake. All of a sudden, that's your first and only viral post.
You're dead.
Yeah, and then it's damage control after that. So
After that, yeah.
they're letting the fear of doing and saying the wrong thing
Right.
stop them from 10xing their business and growing in their space.
Yeah. So that is a really, really strong point. And so let's look at it like this. From an entrepreneurship standpoint, you've kind of told us, listen, we need to change our approach, and that approach now has to look at your business model differently and has to do as much as you could in a digital space. You've given me an idea as to the workflow and the things that's like, tools and stuff that you would actually need. And you're a big advocate of owning your own platforms, platform meaning your website. Why would that be important to an entrepreneur coming into business on a digital platform for 2020 and beyond?
Well, the number one reason is because your platforms is where commerce happens. You're in business to solve a problem, and in order to really solve problems for people, you got to be able to generate money.
Right.
That's just the long and short of it. Because social media is limited for us, and then you're building on a platform that is not yours. So if we see it every single day. If Zuckerberg decides to say, you know what, we don't like this page, they take it down.
Right.
If they don't like a post, they take it down. They take it down. Like we've had, so I don't even know, how many people know, but Digicel Trinidad lost their 30,000 follower account last year, and they had to restart from scratch. And how they lost it made 0 sense. How they lost it was because they posted a clip. Now, they own Sportsmax, right?
Yes.
They just own Sportsmax. They posted a clip of, I think it was like La Liga. They posted a highlight clip of La Liga happening on Sportsmax, and that violated intellectual rights.
Right.
And Instagram removed their account.
Oh, that was Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram
removed the account. Wow.
Instagram blocked their account. So they had like 30,000 followers, and Instagram pulled their entire account. And last year they had to start over from scratch. So if that doesn't scare you into having your own platforms and owning your own platforms, I don't know what else will, because if you build everything on rented land, if the landlord decides to, kick you out, then that's a problem. But then on the flip side too, if you want to have e-commerce happening, and e-commerce is going to explode in the Caribbean now that COVID has happened, you need to have your platform where e-commerce can happen. So that would be like your website. E-commerce can happen on your email list. You want to be able to control your communications to your audience so that in the event if social media goes down, you're not out of business. You can still reach out and do business with your people.
Right. Yeah, that's super strong, man. Because at the end of the day, too, you also get to control your cadence. You whatever it is that you put out there, it's within your own right to put it out there because it's my platform. This is what I want to say. That type of thing.
Correct.
And you don't have to worry about anybody pulling it from you because of course, it's not in line with their policies and stuff like that. So that's a really, really strong,
Correct.
really, really strong point. What would be a couple points that you would want to give entrepreneurs to move forward? Because we're looking at wrapping up in a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
your journey would have started at one particular stage, and you've always been like, when I started to follow you on Droid Island, you've always been a big advocate of adopting technology as being part of a business. I remember there was one time we were talking about something and you said, Lyndon, I don't deliver any phones. I drop ship everything. And I was like,
Correct.
and I think I was telling you that if I had that mindset when I was selling watches, like I would have been, man, I would have made a mint selling watches, but everything I had to deliver manually, So if you had to give any main advice to any entrepreneur as it relates to really focusing on their business digitally, what would that be to give them some, really cool, simple parting advice?
Yeah. The most important thing that has worked for me is start as small as possible.
Right.
I find if you feel like you need somebody in your business,
right,
you're not starting small enough. If you feel like you need thousands and thousands of dollars to get started, you're not starting small enough, because all that does is, if you don't have access to the money or the resources to get that off the ground, it just means your goalpost to launching never gets off the ground.
Yeah.
And something will always come up. So Droid Island started as a blog. Wasn't even e-commerce. There wasn't a store, nothing. It started as a blog. So by the time I built up my name as this tech blogger, I think 8 months after I started my blog is when I got the store. And then, even though I had the brick and mortar store, my content was what was driving so much traffic, and that was getting me the deals that I was getting with working with companies. So I had the decision to make. Do I, keep this store that I've all of a sudden have found myself, I'm never there because I'm always all over the country doing content. Right. And I'm now making money off of my intellectual property, which obviously you as a content creator know, if you're getting paid for your IP, your margins are through the roof. Right? They're through the roof. Do I keep the brick and mortar store and go through all that hassle, rent, maintenance, ordering products, stocking the shelves, maintaining the store? Or do I drop that completely, learn e-commerce, and now that I'm working with all these companies, use the attention that I'm getting from all of those projects and drive traffic to my website where e-commerce can happen, and that gives me time freedom? And that's essentially what I did after 6 months of having a brick and mortar. So even though I spent like $100,000, getting the store off the ground, I made that money back within like 3 months of me doing intellectual property and content.
Yeah.
So start small, learn how to own your space, learn what people are struggling with in your space, and be the resource center, be the leader, answer the questions, serve the people in your space. And as long as you are known as the go-to person in your specific industry, you're going to get the business. So when you do decide to sell products, you're going to get the business. If companies want to work with you, you're going to get the business. If people want to learn your journey, they're going to contact you and figure out, how were you able to do this in your space in the Caribbean? So you're going to get attention from all different angles. And that can all start with you just starting as small as possible. I keep in my mind, if I want to start a business tomorrow, what would I need to start tomorrow? Right. And I kind of start from there. That's just my mindset.
Yeah. And that gives you the ability to scale, measure, and then gradually just start working on expanding your business. I think one of the things with me, I wouldn't have to mention anything about scaling and starting small, but one of the things I think that has really helped me a lot too was finding the right people and looking at, I always tell people there are two sides of a business model. And it's funny that you spoke about business model and not business plan, because for me, the model is more important than the plan, right? And I look at the left hand side of the model a lot. And I've found by creating the right associations, reaching out to the right people, looking at the right activities has really been, and like for you, a lot of your activities has always been creating content and understanding that content is a revenue generating activity. It's not just a matter of
Yes.
content, you know,
Yes.
but it's a revenue generating activity that opens the right doors, gets you to start speaking to the right people, builds on your awareness, and eventually you are where you are right now because you
Yeah.
took that sales activity of creating content, being the thought leader, and you are where you are today, which again, strangely enough, is where, and this is not driven by marketing. A lot of companies are not because they are still playing in the same space. I've found it hard for me, sometimes also for Jared, to really start changing that mindset, you know.
Yeah.
But I've seen the value of inbound. I've seen the value of content creation to the point where now I have a pretty good balance between the two. And it's
Yes.
always amazing to me that when you put content out there, you get a phone call, or you get an email, or somebody jumping in your DMs on WhatsApp or Instagram or whatever it is, or LinkedIn
All the time.
all the
All
time
the
asking
time.
you, even if they're not asking you a question, is because there is business involved in it. But I guess sorry, not I guess, but you're building that awareness to the point where you're generally getting that level of feedback. You write feedback because you will know based upon the questions as to whether your messages are the right messages, it's leading the people in the right direction, and your audience is definitely building. And again,
Correct. The two things
entrepreneurship.
I'll
Go
the
ahead.
two things I'll add to your point is when we talk about, you know, the business model versus business plan, I think Mike Tyson, I got to get the poster and hang it up in my
Right.
room. Mike Tyson had the greatest line ever about plan.
Right.
Everybody has a plan until you get punched in
Punch
the
in the
mouth.
face.
And who could have planned for COVID?
Yeah,
Right?
for real.
Who could have? None of if I was to you know look at my journey, and if I told you nothing went to plan, you know, people think I have a plan because they keep seeing you know what I do just getting on a bigger and bigger and bigger level, but nothing has gone to plan. Everything has happened because I did something and a new opportunity came about as a result of it that I could have never have seen. And if I was sticking to this plan, I probably would have shut off a lot of the opportunities because it wouldn't have been around the plan. There was no plan for show.
And you and I talk about it a lot because we also say that is where we have to start listening to the people, you know. So as much as we're doing what we have to do, we've learned that, you know what, listening to our audience kind of gives us that guide as to, you know what, while we're doing this, our audience is telling us that they want this from us because we're doing this. So this is actually a new opportunity that I didn't even think about, you know. So it's again, I really connect with a lot of the things that you're doing, Keron. I mean, I know that we talk a lot about this offline, but I really wanted to share that with everyone else because, I mean, I've heard the story of you starting one or two of the businesses and some of them not happening. So this may have been this is like the third business or, right? And that is the journey and the life of all entrepreneurs. You may start and it doesn't turn out to be the way it goes. So what would be your closing remark for the audience as it relates to entrepreneurship, maximizing on the digital space, and just really maybe even believing in your own vision? What would be your parting words there?
I would say think digital first. Any business idea, if you are thinking about doing it offline, think about 3 different ways that you could do it online. Do it small. Go online because now your barriers to entry is going to be so much smaller and it's going to be so much more affordable if you go that route. And then if you know what, if down the line you do want to do something offline, you're in a better position to do it. Your name would have circulated at that point in time. You probably have money coming in, and it'll just make a lot more sense to do that later on. And then secondly, I would say, you know, if the foundation of a business is to solve a problem and solve the problem efficiently and solve it well and solve it with integrity. content creation has been everything for me, and my mindset has always been, what is the problem that my audience is facing in this industry that I'm passionate about? Because
Right.
Finding your passion first is going to be key, because no one has to force me to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning or go to bed at 3 o'clock in the
Right.
morning doing work. It's just because, like, this isn't work to me. This is fun. I enjoy doing
Enjoy
this.
it. Right.
But now that I've found my passion, and now that I've learned what the issues people are facing within this space that I'm passionate about, my goal is now to be the source or be the conversation starter around all of those issues. So if I can either solve the issues or if I can generate the conversations about those issues, then that now means people look at me as the resource for that space, and I become a magnet for opportunities.
Right.
And the more you're going to put out is the more you're going to get, is the more options that you never would have thought about when you started the journey. And then you're going to be free to now pick what you want to do at the time at the time of your life. So yeah.
I can't close on better advice than that, guys. I just want to thank everyone that's going to be watching this particular episode for your time. Keron, my brother, thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing openly. This was brilliant.
Thank
And
you.
guys, as I say, your goals are really dependent upon you. Stick to it. As Keron said, think small but big. Think small, act big, scale accordingly, and let's all go out there and achieve our dreams. All right, Keron, man, thanks a lot. Take care and
Thank you.
peace.